Hello, good day to you. Mizzo here. Um, Wearing my pregnancy tie-dye shirt, which I'm very excited about. A friend bought it for me, and all the proceeds um from these shirts go to the LGBTQ Center in LA. She's from California, and a friend of hers makes these. And so not only did I get a maternity shirt, which fits so good, but I also got tie-dye onesies for when the tiny human comes. So I'm pretty pumped. Also, as you can see, I love temporary tattoos, so that's what's on my hands. Okay, so if you haven't seen the topic video from last week, I'm worried it didn't publish correctly. I think it is now, but if you haven't watched it, go watch it because it walks you through kind of an exercise, how to pick topics. So then based on some of the topics that you posted, I'm going to give just a little more thought as you're thinking through topics, not just in terms of selection, but then in terms of like starting to craft a speech because you're starting to craft a speech. How exciting. And sometimes what'll happen is so here's the first thing. So first of all, everybody wants to know if their topic is good. A couple of you have emailed me and I will email back. Don't worry. But here's what often happens. They wait for someone to be an oracle. Like, I am a magic professor teacher, and I shall tell you if your topic is good. Because I'm a genius and I've been teaching forever. Which I have been teaching forever, and I am close to a genius in terms of public speaking. But who cares what I think? I mean, sure, I'm going to give you some nice tips and tricks, but I want you to be able to critically think through your topic. So here's some ways how to do that, okay? Here's how to find out if you've got a solid or a good quote unquote topic, right? So the first thing to think through is, am I interested in this? You can do a topic you're not interested in. You can. It usually doesn't go well. it's I talk about topic selection like dating. Okay, like you don't need to find someone you want to marry or spend the rest of your life with, though some of you will. Some of you might pick a topic in this class that you end up reading and researching and doing stuff all the way through your master's and PhD programs, right? This might be the beginning of a beautiful relationship, research wise. Wink. Um, but you don't have to pick a topic that you want to marry and spend the rest of your life with, okay? I just got done writing a dissertation. I have been in a relationship with this topic for years, people. Years. I just wrote a 200-page document on it, right? And sometimes students will use topics they've used in another class. Obviously, you can't copy and paste or use exactly the same thing, but you certainly can be researching similar topics, like, have an area you're focused and interested on. Cool. You don't want a one night stand topic. You don't want a topic that you want to read an article about for 5 minutes and then you're like, over it. What you want is a nice dating topic. Okay, you want you want a topic you can spend. I mean, you only have 7 weeks. Usually, I say 15 weeks, right? Go out on research dates together. You talk to people about it. Like you want someone as some topic that's interesting to you. But it doesn't have to be something you want to spend the rest of your life with, just the next 7 weeks with, okay? So that's the first thing. And usually, really good topics come from something people are already interested in, right? Secondly, you want to make sure there's enough. Where'd my other finger go? There we go. You want to make sure there's enough information. So thinking about, um, the scope of the topic, most of the topics you all are choosing, there's massive amounts of information on, right? And so you're usually fine there. But the information helps you figure out what kind of like what your angles are, what you're interested in. Like you can't make up a topic if that makes sense, right? So there's this poem by Taylor Mali. If you want to go watch it, it's called Like Lily, Like Wilson. So you would just type in Like Lily, Like Wilson, and the author's name is Taylor Mali, Mali. And it's all about him teaching 8th grade, and he's teaching her. He banned the word like because she says the word like all the time. And she comes up and says to him, she's writing a paper on how gay couples shouldn't be allowed to adopt. This is a long time ago. over 10 years ago, this poem was written. And it's a true story. He's talking about a student he had in class. He wrote a poem about her. And she says, I can't find any good information that supports my claims. And he says, well, then I guess you're going to have to switch your argument. I guess you're going to have to switch what you're saying if you can't find any support. And she's like, oh, okay. Like it's just a really cool, it's like, if you can't find something that supports you, then that's not what you are going to be able to be talking about. Right. So listen, how am I doing this? Listen to your information, right? We'll talk about information in another video, but that's key. You need stakes. So a good topic has a reason why you're talking about it, okay? What is at stake to talk about this topic? Sometimes people are like, oh, these topics are boring. I want to talk about something fun. I want to tell people that they shouldn't eat pineapple on pizza. That's the thing I always think of, is like, I hate pineapple on pizza. And it's like, well, first of all, there's not a ton of information on that I don't already know. So that's going to be a hard informative to give me, unless you can give me the history of pineapple pizza. That might be cool. But when you get to your persuasion, like, what are the stakes? We'll talk more about that when we get to persuasion, but what's at risk? What's at cost? Let's pretend you convince all of us to hate pineapple on pizza. What do we gain? Nothing. So it can be a fun topic. Like, it doesn't have to be a serious topic, but there needs to be something at stake. So I'll give you an example. Almonds. I love the topic of almonds. Blows my mind. You would think almonds don't matter. You would think almonds is a silly topic. Almonds is an amazing topic. Let me tell you why. Most of our almonds are grown in California. They take a lot of water to grow, like a ton of water to grow. Do you know what's happening in California right now? Drought. Do you know what would happen if we stopped eating and growing almonds? No more drought. If we stopped eating almonds for 7 years, that's what the research says, we would get water back in California and no more drought. I mean, I would be willing to give up almonds. What a weird persuasion, right? And think of the stakes. Think of saying, like, if we stopped growing and like giving our resources to this food, we'd have more water for the citizens of California and other means and blah blah blah, right? And think you can do tons of info about almonds, like, how do we start growing them? Why do we grow them in California? Why is that climate better for them? Blah blah. Okay, so almonds sounds silly, but it's got stakes, right? So stakes for a topic. So here's where, and I will make other videos I'm going to make will reference this, and I've already referenced this a little bit, but you want to make sure that that you can think of your topic in terms of information and persuasion. So if you're going to choose a topic that you're like super pumped on and there's no way you can talk about it without sounding persuasive, that's going to be a hard topic for you. And some topics are harder than others. Here's an example. So several of you have talked about obesity, and even if you hadn't, I would talk about this anyway. This is my favorite example to talk about in terms of this. Obesity is a difficult topic. Now, hold on. If you're like, oh no, she's telling me not to do my topic. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. You rock on. Do that topic if you want. But here's every topic is going to have pitfalls, right? Every topic is going to have something you have to be careful of or think about, etc. And that's what I'm going through these to help you do, right? Obesity is difficult because I often hear speeches about obesity where they never define obesity. And so then what happens is their informative speeches automatically come off as persuasive because they're saying obesity is bad, obesity is this, obesity is that, and yet they have not defined for me obesity. And the reason obesity is hard to define is because we as a society don't have good medical ways of defining it. So let's say you're like, okay, here's how the medical community defines it. They define it using BMI. Well, a lot of people have shown that the body mass index, or BMI, is baloney sticks. It's not Great. It's not a factor of health. And so using BMI as the definition of obesity is problematic. So then some people will say, well, obesity increases heart failure. It's like, well, then why aren't you persuading about heart issues and their connection to health and weight? What? So do you see how this becomes a moving target? That a lot of times people will start to talk about obesity, um, and they won't have clear definitions of what they're talking about. And so then, if you don't have clear definitions, it's really difficult to do an informative. And it's really difficult to do a strong persuasive because you're relying on cultural assumptions instead of hard support, evidence, etc. If you develop a speech and someone can easily like say, but what about, but what about, but what about, that's going to be hard or problematic. And there are some topics that just leave more opening to that, right? That just don't have as much way to support or access to information. Kind of connected to this is you want there to be enough for your topic to have stakes and for people to know. So these kind of go together. So a couple examples here. I have heard so many speeches on gay marriage. Let me tell you, and I'm all about it. I love speeches on gay marriage. I heard them all before 2015. I have not heard a speech on gay marriage since 2015. Why? Because 2015, we legalized it. There weren't stakes anymore. Now, since 2015, I've heard about marriages in other countries. I've heard about adoption, gay adoption. I've heard about gay rights and jobs. And I mean, I've heard all sorts of stuff, but I can't hear about gay marriage anymore because now it's the status quo. There's no stakes anymore. Do you see what I'm saying? Um, I definitely could see a speech of saying like, here's things we have to change about marriage, specifically gay marriage. Um, does that make sense? You don't want to pick a topic where there isn't change or a place to go. Similarly, you want to pick a topic that there's a space to learn or knowledge. And if you don't, that's fine, but then recognize that that's really going to be a difficult choice. Here's some really difficult topics. Smoking. Smoking's a really hard topic because we all know the arguments behind it, and we all know smoking is bad for you health-wise, and people still do it anyway. So then when people rely into these, like, you shouldn't smoke, it's bad for you, it's like, tell me something I don't know, right? Drinking age, right? Seatbelts, drunk driving. So, couple of things about some of these topics. Now, don't panic. If you wanted to do one of these topics, you totally still can. I'm just trying to get you thinking about the pitfalls so you can kind of prevent those and do a really, really good speech, right? So, like seatbelts, for example, or steroids is maybe my favorite example of this. When people used to do steroids, and they don't much anymore, thank goodness, but when people used to do steroids, it was always like they would tell me all about steroids in the informative, but they wouldn't go deep enough. It was often stuff we already knew, and then it would accidentally be persuasive because they'd be like, steroids are bad. And I'm like, you don't have evidence to support that. There's lots of reasons we use steroids, but they wouldn't talk about medical uses. They wouldn't dive in, right? So if you pick one of these really popular topics, drinking age, seatbelts, tobacco, right? Like steroids, one of these big, even obesity, I would lump into this, right? You can't just stay on the surface level because that's not informative because we know about that, right? And so like if you're going to do drinking age, you better be digging into the fact that like our transportation funding for each state is connected to drinking age and the history of that, right? Because anytime you're talking about history, that takes you right to informative, and then you're safe from being persuasive in the informative speech. I'm kind of combining these, but hopefully this is helping you think about this first speech and like how you would look at a topic to say, what is it my audience needs to know about this topic? What are the pitfalls, right? Am I going to be persuasive? Pitfall. Am I going to just tell them stuff they already know? Not informative. Am I going to, those are the two big ones, right? So like, am I going to take on too much? Am I going to be jumping around, right? So like thinking about your scope, thinking about it being informative for your audience, thinking about how it's not persuasive, and giving them new information, that's where you want to situate this first speech. It's only 3 to 5 minutes. And here's the other thing, you are the crafter. So that's one of my favorite words, craft. I'm going to say it all the time. C-R-A-F-T, craft. You're not a speech writer. Sure, you write the speech, but I actually don't want you to write the speech. I want you to do it extemporaneously, as you can see on the rubric. So you're not writing it word for word. You're going to craft it, right? Um, uh, it, you aren't like, you're making and creating the speech. You're the author, the crafter. So you're the one making choices. If you just walk around waiting for the speech to come to you and hit you in the head, it's not going to happen. You have to be the one making choices and gathering information and putting it in the structure, and thinking about how the pieces connect and making sure your intro's tight, and all of those things. Now, if you're starting to panic, I'm going to help you. Watch these videos and I'm going to help you do all that crafting, okay? So this is the concept about topics, and specifically thinking about like, what do I need to think through and how might I think through my topic? Now, some teachers I know give no topic list, like a no-fly list. They're like, you can't do these topics. They're overdone. They're done poorly. I'm saving you. I don't do that because I think that impacts your learning. If you pick a topic and do it not in a great way, I think you're still learning. Yes, I have to sit through it for I have to hear about steroids for the billionth time. But if that's what you're interested in, I'm not going to tell you no, right? And I've told you the story about the kid who did the informative about when life begins, and I thought it was going to be horrible, and it was amazing, right? So I never want to like cap amazingness. I want to be supportive, but I do want you to critically think through these things as you're going through your topics, and email me if you have any questions, right? For those of you that are doing obesity and you want tips for how to make that a really strong topic, I've got ideas, right? Feel free to email me. If you're into a topic and you're like, oh my God, I think my audience knows all of this, right? I think that this topic's been around for a long time. We've been talking about it for a long time. There's a lot of topics out there like that. Like, run it past me. I'm happy to help. Okay. So good luck. Again, if you didn't see the first topic video on week 1, go watch that. And after you finish this video, now you can move on to thinking about informative versus persuasion, and also intros and conclusions. Yay!